Hi everybody. I thought I'd pop in with a voiceover and talk about painting Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service. I just watched the show and I was really inspired to do um, a Kiki related project, and this was really exciting for me. It was going to be a bigger painting than what I usually do, and so it took a really long time to film everything that I was doing. I think I had over 5 hours of raw footage, and the only thing that made the editing process manageable was that I had to stop painting between the layers and allow them to dry. And so I would use that time to go over what I had just shot and do a rough cut of the footage. And this was so much better than going into the editing process and looking at the total 5 hours of footage all at the same time. I think this piece really did push my boundaries in a good way. And over the past couple of years, I've seen a lot of growth. And it just, at the end of this project, I really was proud of how far I've come. Aside from a couple of art classes I took in high school, I'm pretty much a self-taught artist. And when I was learning to paint, there wasn't YouTube as it is now. And even if there was artists out there, being online wasn't even on my radar. So my learning scope was very limited to a couple of books and Bob Ross. When I started painting, I was working mostly with acrylics, and when you work with acrylics, it has a really fast drying time. Right now, there's all these new products and mediums that you can use to manipulate acrylics into behaving more like oil paints, offering longer drying times and allowing time for blending. But back then, I'm not even sure if these products existed, but I didn't have them at my disposal, so I was just using water to extend the work time before the paint dried. Working with acrylics, you have to work fast, and I feel like it's a really unforgiving medium when you need to take the time to figure out what you're doing, especially figuring out flesh tones. You're going to need more than just a moment for that. I can remember having blobs of paint everywhere on my palette, and when I was trying to mix the right skin tone, I would take a while, so I tried using water to extend it, only to have it become too translucent, and so I'd add more paint, trying to make it opaque again, and I was just in this continual cycle of mixing either way too much or not enough for my project. And once acrylic paint dries, it becomes unusable. So I was getting frustrated. During this time, I did try other mediums like pencil crayons and watercolor, a little bit of oil painting, and just tons more. And I was trying to do mixed media to get the results I was looking for, but I never was able to. So I started trying different brands, and these weren't the most expensive brands. They were definitely on the cheaper side because that was my price point. But there were so many different kinds that I tried. I thought at least one would give me enough indication that I could get better at painting and maybe justify buying more expensive brands to use in the future. But that didn't happen, and I started to feel that maybe I had reached a peak in my abilities and skills, and maybe I would just have to accept that this is as far as I can go. So there was a lot of years that went by without attempting to paint and draw. And when I started to sketch again, I was doing some design work for masks that I was building. And I started to draw figures and the accessories. I was noticing my drawing skills were improving. And once those projects started to slow down, that's when I really started to watch watercolor videos. And I started to absorb the information that these YouTubers were sharing. And it brought me to a point where I wanted to try painting again. Now, I can't remember when, where, or how I got these watercolor pencils, but I had them for years, and the one day I was really feeling inspired, I just decided to check them out. I didn't really have to buy anything extra. I had some stuff on hand, and it really shocked me when I started to use them. And these aren't the greatest watercolor pencils. When they dry, they're a little bit chalky, but compared to all of my previous experiences, they were amazing. They were colorful. You could lay down a lot of color on your page using very little product and get decent gradients of color. They flowed, and I was able to layer them. With all the other ones that I tried out, they wouldn't flow, and they were watercolors and I was adding water, but it just seemed that they wouldn't mix and move around like a watercolor should. So after a while of using these, I was able to paint this image. And when I was able to make that painting, that's when I was really convinced that I can get better at painting people. And I realized that it wasn't so much my skills that were the problem, and that mostly it had been the art supplies that I was using and my lack of product knowledge. As you know, when buying art supplies, they don't really come with a lot of instructions, and some of them don't even have general information on how to use them. And I know some people would say that's what our art classes are for, and there are books that you can find that will help you along with that. Well, yes, if you're in the position to take the art class and if you find the right book that you could learn from, that's great, but I wasn't able to. So when YouTube became a thing, that's when I started to learn, and I'm so thankful to the YouTube artists out there that are sharing their speed painting videos, talking about their processes, and sharing the materials that they use. And I really, really, really do appreciate artists that do product reviews and comparisons of things, because that's what helped me to grow. I truly don't think I would have progressed the way that I did without them. So thank you so much. I'm going to do a list down below to show the YouTube artists that inspired me when I started to get back into painting. So yeah, they'll be listed down below. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thinking back on those experiences, it just makes me really want to help out other people when it comes to figuring out what kind of products are worth your time. There's been so many art projects that I've done where the information wasn't out there at the time, and so you had to just dive in, buy a product, and hope for the best. And that doesn't always work out, and you end up wasting a lot of time and money. And that has definitely been the case for me, and I've been into different areas of art, from resin to polymer clay to wire working, a whole bunch of stuff. So I know how important it is to buy products that are worth your time and that are going to complement what you're trying to achieve and how you work as an artist. When I started to invest in better art supplies, I didn't go straight to tube paints, which is what I'm doing right now, and that's exactly how I need to work because it complements me better than the other things I tried beforehand. Like, I tried watercolor concentrates and found that they were really difficult for me to work with in the way that I needed to. I kept knocking them over, spilling them. I didn't know that I was a person that needed to have watercolors that had good light fast ratings. And what that is it's just how long do the paint colors last in the light before they start to fade. And it's important to me because I wanted to create pieces that I'm going to eventually sell. And that might not be important to you because maybe mostly you're working in your art book where light's not going to come and disrupt the color of your image. So there's a lot of things to consider, and there's so many more options out there. And now that there's Amazon and people are buying online more, it just offers a range of different art supplies, and you can get really amazing art supplies at a cheaper price now. I actually bought a couple of the pretty excellent sets from Amazon. I gave one to my daughter and we were checking it out, and it was so vibrant and beautiful. I would have happily started out with a set like that. And I probably would have progressed really far had I had that type of art supply. I don't know what the light fast rating is on that, so that is why I decided to buy a Mijello Mission Gold set for myself, because there were so many artists that used it and said that it was a wonderful paint, and I have to agree, this has been the best paint that I've used. And I really love watercolor because, especially the tube paints, because you can mix your own colors and create your own palettes of whatever color scheme that you want. And the great thing about this is when it dries, you can reactivate it and just continue doing that until it's gone pretty much. That's very valuable for someone that is starting out, because there are going to be times where it takes you a lot longer to figure out exactly what you're doing. And so if your paint dries, pressure's off, don't worry about it. Just add a little water and start painting again. So recently I bought some Prismacolor Premier pencils, and I started to buy some individual faber castell. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I started to buy some select colors for defining and outlining these watercolor pieces. So that was the exact same experience that I had with watercolors. I must have been using some pretty bad pencil crayons in the past because I could never get them to layer up, and I used a light hand. I wasn't pressing down and flattening the paper, but for some reason they just wouldn't layer. And when I started using the Prismacolors, they layered easily, and then I was able to get so much pigment on the paper, I was able to blend it out so it was smooth looking. So I guess the biggest takeaway for me is that sometimes it's not your skills and abilities that are the problem, and sometimes it is the products that you're using. So I'm going to list all the products that I used in this painting down below. Feel free to ask me any questions that I might be able to help you with. And yeah, I hope that this helps people, because it's really hard to think that someone out there stopped painting because they had an experience like mine where I just thought that was it. That was the peak of my abilities and I couldn't progress further. So that's not always the case. So yeah, I hope you liked the video. I'm going to cue up some music because I'm not sure what else I could add to this. And yeah, please like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next video. Have a good night, everybody.